the regular monthly meeting of the Romeo Downtown Development. Can I have you call roll call again, Elizabeth?
Sure. Give me 1 second to just put that away. That might be the fastest informational meeting ever. That's my third one, so. Okay, Tar.
Yes.
Kellogg.
Here.
Malzahn.
Yes.
Brandt.
Here.
Rose is absent. Hayes.
Here.
Nancy is absent. Stevens.
Here.
Parker.
Yep.
Okay.
Could everybody stand with me to say the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, again, do we have anybody here for public forum? No. Okay, before we go into the approval of the agenda, I'd like to express our condolences to Elizabeth on behalf of the board on the loss of your father. So,
Thank you. Appreciate that.
can I get approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Was that Hayes?
Second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, can I get an approval of the minutes from the June 6th regular meeting?
Motion to approve.
I'll second, I actually did read them.
Thank
All in
you.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, on to the financial report.
Sure. So we have a little update. Is everyone aware of our accountant's situation with her husband passing away last month? So I don't want to go into it. It was very sudden, and she wants to continue to support the DDA, but needed to step back from that. She's helping us in the transition. Has continued to do payroll through all of that, and we've hired Rebecca from the village office as a separate employee. She'll be doing our books, and we'll be consulting the village accountant on occasion as needed for some reporting and whatnot. But she looked at everything. She took a little bit of time, looked at everything, and she goes, "Oh, no, I can do this. This is not a problem." But Michelle would love to hop back on at some point if she can. As you can imagine, she's quite overwhelmed with the suddenness of what happened, and she's still trying to build a house and in the village and have a full-time job and be a grandma and a mom and all that. So she's gotten to be a friend, and she and her family came. Actually, her son, did anybody of you see little Elvis? Mm-hmm. That was her grandson, sorry. So they were here on Saturday as well. So just giving you a quick update on that. So bear with me, and please offer me a little bit of grace if you don't, and mercy perhaps, if I can't quite explain the financials to you as well as she could. Are there any questions on any of the financials? Because I will go through a little bit of it from how the best I can explain it. If you look at the sheet, the report, you'll see the statements are year-to-date from July 1 to June 30. At the end of the meeting, we'll be doing a final budget amendment for the fiscal year. As you can see, revenue collected was $3,650. $150 was collected from vendors for Vintage Fest, and the remaining were donations for alley project beautification. And then one of our sponsors specifically donated so that we could waive our camper and car fees. So that was a great way to be able to do that. So we had a lot of, I'd like to say we had a lot of happy campers. We had at least 3, a lot of happy vintage car owners that did not have to spend the money on that. Invoices, checks, payroll were all filled out, and then as you know, we just talked about the budget, and I'll talk some more about that later on. So, yeah, we'll talk about that under new business item 11D. We did include, if you look, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5th and 6th and 7th pages. Those are just for your records. If you wanted to pull, and 7, sorry, if you pull those out, so the one says, at the top it says approved fiscal year 22-23. I don't believe you ever got a hard copy of the new approved budget. So if you wanted to pull those from your packet and just have them separate so you always have a copy of the new budget, that is the one-page approved budget. And then the next 3 pages, of course, are the informational purposes only, but the line items. So just so you have those. And then the other part I wanted to just mention to you, because we're looking to reduce or because the budget was reduced, you'll see that, you know, our fund balance is going to be higher than we expected. But again, we'll talk about that under new business. Oh, and then the last page before the director's report, I had her print that just so you had it. Those will actually come off as, none of those are in what it's getting approved tonight, but those were all the ones that are registered for the 21-22 fiscal year. So those will be approved at next month's meeting, but just so you saw that these were year-end charges to the budget, but you won't see them on the financials to be approved until next month. That's an accounting question. Don't ask me why. I don't know. Are there any questions on any of that?
Elizabeth, what is Van's Valley Produce?
They are our flower contractor for
okay.
downtown.
I didn't know the name of it.
The only thing, I'm not sure if you saw Danielle Kelly's email today, because
I
remember
did.
I had initiated that, and she is recommending that you do pay the $10,000 out of last fiscal year and accrue it back.
Okay,
So,
as long as the board's fine with that, we'll take care of that with the
yeah,
finances.
we can talk more if you need to under budget amendments, but.
Okay. So, okay, yeah, sounds good. If there's no other questions, I guess we can.
We need an approval to pay the bills in the amount of $42,0717. Well, since I signed the checks, I'll make the motion to approve
I'll
the
second.
amount of $42,0717.
Okay.
Roll call?
Tar?
Yes.
Kellogg?
Yes.
Malzahn?
Yes.
Brandt?
Yes.
Hayes?
Yes.
Stevens?
Yes.
Parker?
Yep.
Okay, thank you for your patience in regard even to my report that I got to you right this afternoon. Of course, in compliance with Public Act 57, we've scheduled our informational meeting. It was earlier today, and then the next one we'll do in either November or December. Our DDA event committee continues to meet. We are planning and recommending an event called Screech Fest for Saturdays or weekends in October. More details on this event series will be developed now that Vintage Fest is over. We plan to reuse some of our banners and do some creative things with them and that are in theme with Halloween. So some of the old Peach Fest ones have like a big peach on them and they're kind of white. I think there's one hanging up down by Frontier Town. There's one down there.
On the tree.
But the idea is to alter the peach to kind of maybe look like a jack-o'-lantern or something and mark it out and reuse them. So MJC Marketplace, some of the sellers there, and of course Kathy, the owner, they have been a huge help with our event committee, and they are working on different organizations within our area, not just within the Central Business District, but some of the nonprofit organizations and community organizations of having events like maybe a 5K, things like that. We might not have that one this year, but events that we don't have to generate all the work out of, but we support that. And that makes a lot of sense. And those can be revenue generating for said organization, whether it's a foundation like what the Chamber does or what various other organizations do. So that would be our next big event, if you will, that we'll be working on. Of course, we already have it on the calendar to do the Art and Wine Walk in October as well. The Spruce It Up Sunday event was a huge success with over 25 volunteers showing up and sprucing up our downtown alleys in the Village Park. And the businesses that were out and Main Street Romeo Kitchen and Bar provided the food. And Paramount paid for the cost of the food, and then the kitchen and bar donated the rest of the amount there. Flowers and planters are being well taken care of by Ray and his team. In spite of all the construction, that none of the planters had to be moved. I thought it would be much dustier and messier than it actually is, and they're doing a really good job with all that. RFPs for future contracts regarding the fall and winter decor and summer 2023 will be coming in the following months, and this will be part of, it is not part of the board agenda. Well, I said it was going to be, but it isn't. I guess I need to fix that. So I guess looking for a little bit of, maybe we can talk about that just briefly at the end of my report. Under beautification project for our alleys, the donations for our alley projects has almost reached my goal of $10,000 with a total of $8,500 in checks. This number does not include, of course, all the in-kind donations and actual hard items that were donated in addition to time and resources. We still have a decent amount of funds left within that budget for other improvements that are still in the works. A complete report on this project would be coming this fall to be included in the fall or the winter informational meeting. The glass bottle art mural has begun. She's going to start laying the foundation in the next couple days. As you know, from Bill, especially you being a realtor and knowing construction stuff and whatnot, of course, Miss Dig was called for every single alleyway site, and so I've gotten well versed in how they do that for commercial spaces, and so that's been really helpful to know and get that done. So Sarah will be out there, and she already has the sand base is in there, and then the concrete's getting poured in the next few days. Starkweather looks amazing as usual. Our partners at Starkweather always do such a beautiful job in helping keep that space look nice. And the flower planter down at Peyton Manor has become quite popular on that side of town, and it really makes that side a little bit more cohesive with the rest of the CBD. Marketplace Alley looks lovely and is being used by many people. One of the reasons you guys hired me is because I know how to talk to people and come to some kind of terms when we don't all agree. And there were some very interesting and disturbing data points that were coming my way, and some of them are just, I know you guys got this in an email from me, but I think it's important to say it, especially since some people watch, we have an audience, we have a few people here tonight. It is not it's not a permanent closure. You all approved it, and so did the village council, just until November 1st. Do I have ideas beyond that? Of course I do, but the actual approved one is just to that date. There was concern that the fire department had no say in this, and of course I have in writing that the police chief, or the fire chief, said that was all fine and good. Business owners, of course, village council approved it, and so forth. It was also has been rumored that the village president has given the alley away to MJC Marketplace, which of course we all know she can't do. It's village property. No one can just give it away without it going to the board and probably even the residents. I'm not sure how that process is, but and they were quite confused why that would have been started if it's not true. So I don't know. And there were also comments that it doesn't fit the downtown, that we should have the scrolling metalworks and whatnot. And I said, you're right, that would look beautiful, except this is temporary. It's called a placemaking space for a reason. It's a temporary thing, and more permanent thing would, of course, cost way more than $10,000 to $15,000. You'd be looking at well over $100,000 most likely. So yes, would there be plans to make it look like the rest of downtown if it becomes permanent? Of course, but there'll be a much longer process for that. There's quite a few grants that are out. I think Christine had offered, yes, you did last week. There's the county extended some small grants, the deadline for that until I think the end of this week. So we're considering trying to see if we could throw something together for that.
That's the bridge builders one, yes.
Yes, that one. The one-way signs in the alley behind the chamber building have been installed, and so have the 2-hour parking signs. Have also been added to the existing poles. Due to the DPW workload and the short staff, all the other signage will wait until sometime after this fall. Of course, again, this was another one of those things that was rumored that just got put up without being approved, and why this, that, and if we're trying to make everything in the downtown community more cohesive, the northeast quadrant is the only one that didn't have a one-way sign or alleyway anywhere. All the other ones do, and it's the only it's the quadrant with the fewest number of actual businesses that are affected by a one-way sign. So we don't want to, someone said to me, but there hasn't been a tragedy in 10 years. And I said, so do we want to wait till there's another one? So of course the answer is no, we want to be proactive. So that's what we did by doing that with your all's approval and the village council's approval. And last but not least, we've distributed our second run of the shopping and dining guides. We are actually all out now, I'm happy to say. There's still some everywhere, of course, around town. I still have a small stack for the downstairs. But we plan to make another run this fall with new additions and updates that include our new businesses. As you know, Town Hall Soda Fountain had their grand opening on Saturday, and 5 Degrees North, I've been sitting on that one for a while. It's been killing me not to tell everybody. They just announced, of course, a few days ago that they will be moving into the former Romeo Floors space, and they anticipate opening hopefully by Peach Fest, but if not, by September. So they will be roasting all their beans downtown, so we're going to smell good down there. So are there any questions about the report at all?
I would just encourage you again, I'm sorry those things have come your way and you had that resistance to those things. I've been doing this about 20-some years in the village, and unfortunately, you'll see that there's sour grapes people out there who will do that sort of thing. I myself spent more than a couple of hours about 2 weeks ago unraveling rumors and different things about what's happening in front of our building and the barbecue place and the Little Caesars and what's happening there. So there's naysayers out there that will continuously try to make things more difficult for those who want to move things forward. So lean into it, continue the good work. We appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm not discouraged by it. I appreciate when I find out who's saying it, because then I kind of can go have a conversation. It's when you don't know, or when someone says, well, I can't say who said, well, that doesn't help us. So, and it was very informative. I said, I'll be happy to give you, copies of the minutes of who voted for it if you'd like, and whatnot. So that's, it's like I've told you before, I deal best with direct and open communication. So we hopefully work through that.
Elizabeth, I see you noted on here about the mailer that went out.
Oh, yes, I forgot to say that. Mhm.
That was that was really nice, the collaboration and that from Christine. And
Thank you. Actually, she wrote it. I didn't even know she was putting that in there, but it was wonderful to be able to have that. It was actually during while I was gone too.
Yeah.
So but it was nice to be able to get that. We talked about doing our own mailer. And then she said, well, I'm about to do this one. I think I've got a small space in there. We could just add it there for you. I'm
it
like,
just
oh,
really
wonderful.
showed the collaboration and the
Absolutely.
unity
And it saved money from our budget.
yeah. There you go.
Which was great. Thank you. Don't bill me. There was something that we were going to add. So under the beautification, I have some interesting thoughts and ideas about what we could maybe do a little bit differently for next year on that. It has to do with some of my sponsorship goals from our budget. But and I'll be working on these RFPs within the next month. So I guess, if you're fine with me just coming up with what I want to come up with and then bringing it to you, unless you want to, have a conversation about that. And the winter decor too, by the way, because I've got to get that out pretty soon.
So you're getting the RFPs out before our next meeting?
Well, that's where part of the question is of course, you probably want to review that prior to that going out. So is it just getting them prepped and ready to be reviewed at the next board meeting? I haven't done one yet for this board, so what's the protocol?
Could we just have you prepare it and then chair and co-chair review it just to make sure it's okay to send out? I mean, I don't think we need to vote on it
Right.
at a meeting to waste any time that we're going to have to push it back or hold a special meeting. If it looks good to the chair and co-chair, I would say we can move forward with it.
Yeah, unless we're really sort of changing the theme or the design or going in a different direction, but if it's pretty much just replicating what we've done in previous years, I think with the exception of, did we discuss leaving the pots and they were going to put fall decorations in the pots when the flowers come out and then put greens
winter
in there, right?
And that
So
will probably
obviously-
save us money as well, because we'll just be inserting things as
So
opposed
unless,
to.
unless somebody
Exactly.
says we want to, change the theme up and do something different, I don't know why we would need to rehash that at a meeting, correct?
Probably need a whole subcommittee to put that together ahead of time, and we don't have the time.
Right.
We're running short here, so.
I agree.
So go ahead and
Okay.
put
All
it
right, thanks for
together,
the
and
direction.
then, yes, as to Zach's, we can review it then.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
And then I can just forward it to the board, just
Mm-hmm.
for
So we have a copy of
informational
it,
purposes.
yeah.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Elizabeth.
Mm-hmm.
Funding requests? I don't think we have any. Committee reports. I can tell you the policy committee did not meet since last month, so we do not have an update.
Zach and I did meet in regards to the grants, it's not,
Oh,
help me out.
the building
I'm not-
grants,
I'm
the
not-
facade?
Yes,
is
yes,
it-
Oh,
facade,
yeah,
yes,
the
facade.
facade. I thought you were
So-
going into the parking study.
No.
committee.
So the facade.
Yeah,
thing.
we're
So
gonna,
we'll have that
we'll have it for
until-
next month,
for
just with the way
August,
everything
yeah.
worked out for this
Mhm.
month. But parking study committee, to follow up on that, we didn't have anything to meet about or discuss.
And the updates were in the director's
Right.
report, yeah.
Well, so I'm just curious if you're going to call a meeting on that, because we just probably need to take a consideration of the inventory. When Elizabeth directed DPW or asked DPW to put up the signage, And then they did that, but it was noted that there's not a lot of posts already in the ground for some of the areas that we thought the signage was going, so they've replaced the signs where there was a post available.
Sure.
But there's concerns about, one, the amount of work, and cluttering the sidewalks further to add more signposts and signs. So I think maybe the parking committee might want to meet, and perhaps I could attend, and I could ask the DPW supervisor to attend as well, if you find that helpful. I just want to know who's taking the inventory of what we still need to put up, where you thought they were going, and where it's missing, so that we can just keep moving it forward.
So
Just
we
like
can definitely do that at some point. Since he's stressed how short-staffed he is right now, we
Yes.
could probably wait until, after Peach Fest to do that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I just didn't want it to fall off the radar.
Yep, okay. We'll get on the calendar for way far in advance.
Perfect.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. Unfinished business, pedestrian crosswalk update.
So I updated you all on that last week via email. Basically, you can see the work they're doing down there. The crew has been really great to work with, actually, been very responsive. Jessica Newby, who's the owner of the Town Hall soda fountain, they were a little nervous. Of course, they didn't, even though we had communicated to them, they really accommodated, getting all that stuff stamped down there, tamped
up.
down there, thank you. So that it could be used on Saturday, and there were no incidences whatsoever. So they've been a really good crew to work with. Christine and I have been, communicating with them, with businesses and whatnot. So I think that's all going really well.
Is it still projected before Peach Fest?
The final the brick material on top could go after Peach Fest, but nothing at that point. They're a separate company, so that is contracted through. And correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, Christine. But they have their own barriers. They have all their own stuff, so all that would be removed. Correct, from what I remember.
Yes, the only reason that it should be delayed is for unexpected discoveries when they start doing some of the removal,
Digging,
which
yeah.
is what happened when they did the northwest quadrant of Main Street. The grade and the thickness of the asphalt and the concrete there was not in alignment with the other soil boring samples that they took. So that was an unexpected find. So we have to actually reduce the height of the lamp post and of the manhole cover that's there. Otherwise, it would be a trip hazard because the concrete has to change. So those sorts of delays are what we're trying to work through. So if it's unanticipated, it could push the project back. But everybody's working with the same intent that we are going to get this done, including the epoxy cement before Peach Fest. Right now, they're about a week ahead of schedule. So they're
Right.
supposed to be starting Washington Street either today or tomorrow.
And I'm popping into the businesses. Four Corners was adversely affected on day 2, and we did a quick pivot on that. We pulled one of our A-frame signs over there, let her write stuff on the back of it. All the guys went over there and had lunch, and now we're all singing Kumbaya. So, checked in with her again this morning, and she said it and sent me a text a little later. Thank you just for checking. So that's what it's about. I mean, I'd rather say, you talk to me too much, please go away, than why aren't you talking to me? So, just communicating. And Christine, Catherine, the clerk, and I are working on making sure we keep that communication up with the affected businesses.
I'm laughing as I watch the cones that are across from Romeo Barber Shop and behind PNC move, because I keep moving them so people can make a left-hand turn, and somebody keeps moving them back. But
I know, that's
Just try and
a
make
little
sure, right.
puzzle to get into PNC there.
it is,
Yeah.
it is. But the crew's been really great. So they're really helping us make sure that everybody's
What's happening?
got access.
That's the one that turned us.
Absolutely, it's right, and that's why they didn't want to have traffic back up, make that turn into PNC right there.
If you're in here,
Yeah.
you can't turn west there.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Have they made, what's the status of the drain in front of my building? I was under the understanding when they did.
Greg, could you talk into your microphone just so people can hear what you're
do
saying?
that.
Right, so that quadrant, the east side of Van Dyke right now is the last phase, because it's a supply chain issue. But there are, I believe, 6 drains or manholes that they're rehabbing. through this project, yours being one of them. And so while they start, when I said Washington Street, it's the west side that they're starting, not the east side. And I think I popped in and told somebody on Thursday or Friday, the secretary.
Taylor,
Yeah,
Kathy.
Taylor was in a meeting, and so,
Okay.
yeah, I just let them know that. Yep.
Thank you, very good. On to the Vintage Fest update.
Yes, I should have asked for that to be actually pulled from the agenda, but I mean, I can just give you a quick update. It was a lot of fun. I'm still tired.
That was a 16-hour day.
It was a long day for those of us who were working from morning till night. But it's, the weather couldn't have been more perfect.
Yeah.
The cars that showed up, we had a few misunderstandings about that whole thing, that people thought when we lifted the fees that meant nobody had to register, so we had people showing up, and so we got it all figured out. But I had so many comments, especially from the vintage car owners, how much fun it was to be on Main Street like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we've had somebody reach out to us maybe 6 weeks ago, who said, would you guys consider having a cruise night every week downtown? And I'm like, well, who would you like to have sponsor that? So they haven't gotten back to me yet. Not something I'm looking to take on, but definitely something that we could support through social media and whatnot. So for instance, of course, bike nights that's usually Youngers. That's Youngers, right? Mm-hmm. And then the pub does the Jeep night, and so it'd be fun if Main Street, if they end up wanting to do that at some point. But there was a lot of excitement from that. The music artists were great. The contestants for the costumes were great, and the dancing. And I was dancing with almost everybody, I think, in the office by the end of the night. So that was a lot of fun. I heard the pie eating contest was a lot of fun. The kids' crafts, the vendors had a good time back in the Village Park. So we learned some lessons for sure. But my gosh, we couldn't have asked for a better day as far as weather. So we had a lot of fun. But Madison will have a full report for you guys at next month's meeting.
I was super impressed with the sound system too that Sean Earl provided from Romeo Gold, right?
That was not him. That was Greg Parks.
Greg Parks.
Yeah.
Okay. I misunderstood that. It was great because there was no distortion. It was projected just right. It wasn't overwhelming. So it was really a really good setup. So good to know that.
That worked out really well. I have to thank Ruth Heidebright from the MIT TV because that was her recommendation.
Oh, excellent.
And then he right away got right on the phone and contacted every one of our performers to say, here's my system. I don't know all the lingo, but here's what we're doing. You don't have to bring any of your own stuff. And I think they were all really impressed with how that all worked out. We had a little snafu right in the beginning, but he worked through that real quick. And we had a last minute sponsor who actually, or one of the sponsors that came through, I should say, that helped to pay for that, that helped to fund that. So
that's great.
And we still ended up under budget, so that was good.
And we sold 5 kegs of beer out of that little tiny beer tent.
That's awesome.
It
Yeah,
was
the
really
chamber did
fun.
an excellent job with that, and again, that was another thing that we kind of did some last minute alterations to all of that, and I think it helped the event become even better. So
It was incredible.
Okay. New business, officer board position. So that's the chair, co-chair, and secretary.
Don't everybody scoot your chair back at one time. Right?
I would be, being in the co-chair or the vice chair position, if there was anybody else who would be interested in possibly doing a transition for me out of that role. I was chair for 2 or 3 years and then vice chair the last 2 years to kind of help Kelly just transition into that space.
That was the
And I
deal.
think, exactly, and I think after 2 years, I think you're okay. I don't think you need my guidance anymore.
Well, you're not going anywhere.
I'm not going anywhere, but yeah. So if there's anybody else who's interested in it, I am not. I'm not gonna fight for it. Let's just put it that way. So, speak now or forever
Right,
hold
you
your
are the
peace.
treasurer
I
already,
stay
right?
quite busy as treasurer.
I don't know if we can do a dual.
Right, I'm not qualified to do that. I mean,
You're not going
yeah.
through an elimination.
Right, exactly, so, right.
So-
I'm not eligible.
Well, I would make, a nomination for co-chair, I would suggest Elizabeth Kellogg.
I'd second that.
Jump right on that.
She has to accept.
I know.
Can I think about it?
No?
Okay, I'll accept.
Okay, thank
We
you.
need an all in favor.
All in favor?
Well, do
Aye.
you,
Well, let's do one position at a time, I
What-
guess, right?
well, you could slate it,
Okay.
right? And then you could do a vote,
Okay,
if you wanted to.
we can. So
Okay.
Greg is treasurer.
Yes.
Yes. Elizabeth is co-chair.
Are
Once-
you
Stay
willing to
on.
stay on as chair?
Yes.
Okay, so we have the chair.
And
So,
secretary.
Megan's currently secretary, John's not here. I
You
mean,
never
it's
know.
one of
That
those
means he
meetings.
gets voted in because he's not here.
That's what.
It doesn't, I mean, it doesn't, it's not a,
They don't, I have
We
not
haven't-
communicated
we-
once on a secretary level with Megan since I started.
no, I don't think we're doing anything as far as, because wasn't that more,
For Lisa, when
yeah.
Lisa was very part-time, yeah. So,
Has anybody talked to John about that? And
you
has
know,
anybody
you know
talked
the
to
rule.
Megan about it?
You know the rule, don't miss a meeting. I'm going to suggest John Rhodes as secretary.
I'd second that.
If he wishes to, have us re-vote on
Right.
it next month, if
That's
there's a reason
fine,
that he doesn't
yeah.
want to do it, then
Right.
certainly we could accommodate that, but, so.
Don't you want to do something?
Okay, so do you want to do, may I make a suggestion?
Correct.
Do you want to do one motion and second for the slat as presented?
Yes,
Okay,
yeah.
okay, or slate as presented, okay. So who wants to make the motion for those?
I'll make the
slates?
motion
Okay, and
to reappoint Kelly Stevens as chair, Elizabeth Kellogg as vice chair, Greg Tarr as treasurer, and John Rose as secretary.
okay, does that need a roll call or just an all in favor?
All in favor, yeah.
Do we have support for that motion?
Oh,
Yeah,
there was
we
not
need a
support, sorry.
for-
I'd support it.
Support, okay.
Now, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you, everybody, for, well, I don't know if John is watching this from home, but.
Yeah, he's screaming at the television.
Okay. Do we have the proposed dates in the packet?
No, I just wanted to briefly mention it. There's no board action
Okay.
required. I just wanted to have it under new business because I'm aware that if we were to do that, you don't want that buried in a director's report. So I've spoken and seen, there's quite a few other DDAs that meet at different times than what we do. And I know, especially since some people are on other boards, it can get hard with evening meetings and whatnot. There are quite a few DDAs that have a best practice of actually having a morning meeting, an early one. I mean, you guys, we've really gotten better about, really shortening our meetings. I've gotten better about not overwhelming you with 100-page board packets. And, that's something that we could do. It'll also keep us on task, I think, a little bit more. I'd like to suggest that perhaps come the new year, when we look at a calendar in December, that we consider doing that.
I'm just going to point out from my experience with
Sure.
the chamber board, we do meet at 7:30 in the morning, but the
Mhm.
meeting ends at 9, whether
Period.
you're done with it or not. So you have to look at that for people going to open their stores, or, you'd almost be meeting at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Mhm.
Would MIT be able to accommodate that? Would that affect them at all? Have you talked to Ruth about?
I'm sure she's been fine with things like that before.
Okay.
I mean, it's part of a contract. I don't know that the contract says what time you have to.
Well, as board members, what is your thought?
Mhm.
I mean, that would not really work for me, to be honest. 'cause
It wouldn't,
I
okay.
have a full-time
Mhm.
job.
I don't do 7 a.m.,
Okay, well, there goes that.
so I could do 8, right? I could do 8.
But 8's
But-
not going to work for business people.
Well,
It
if
was
you're
if
open
we
at 10,
limited
8
your
to 10 is
meetings
fine,
to,
but-
How
right.
many meetings have we ever had that lasted under an hour?
I know, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
But you would
Maybe
just
that
make
would-
that your goal.
We're working on change, that's what we're
Right, you would just
doing.
make that your goal, that it's an hour
Yeah.
meeting, and not otherwise the.
You can't do
agenda said
7:30?
Nope.
Okay. So for once a month, that wouldn't work for you?
No.
I really can't commit
Okay,
to that.
okay.
To 7 or 7:30? Or,
I can't commit to that. I have financial meetings at sometimes 7:30 in the morning.
okay, so I'm not the only one that won't do
Yeah.
7. Okay.
Okay.
no.
Yeah. I mean,
But I don't
Do
think
you-
she's available at 8 either.
Yeah.
Okay, so morning idea is out. Would you
I just
could,
can't commit to that. Sorry.
no, that's all right, not a problem. Do you want to keep it on a Monday? Is there a I mean, it's been a habit, so if you want to keep it that way.
I think Monday's good because of all
Okay.
the other board meetings and. what-
Yeah, if we're not changing anything drastically, like from a time standpoint, I don't think it makes sense to start moving days around or
Okay.
anything like that.
Sounds
Unless for
good.
some reason with reporting or preparing some of the stuff, it would be better for you to like do it at the
Like the second,
Thursday.
it would be nice to move it like to the second Monday of every month as opposed to the first, because we had, I think, at least 4 meetings this year that had to be moved because of holiday, and plus they get, it makes it really hard from the financial standpoint, from closing things out at the end of the month. So if we were, for the new year, changing it to the second Monday of the month would be helpful.
That's fine, yeah, either the
Right.
second or the fourth.
They're not on
Yeah,
Monday,
you
they're
could
on
do it the
Wednesdays.
fourth Monday of the month. Obviously, the village council meetings are the third. Planning commission and HDC are on Thursdays. So,
The second makes
Mhm.
The
sense
second
to me.
Monday of the month could work.
Okay. So on the
Yeah,
next,
if that's
okay.
something that would work better.
I do like the 6
Second
o'clock.
Monday.
I do too.
what's that, Greg?
Second Monday, I have to be careful with that.
Okay.
Well, then,
So it looks
looks
like-
like we're staying on the first
Stay-
Monday. of the
Okay, so we'll
month.
stay with it and then just all, okay, all right. Well, I'll look at the calendar and I'll talk with my chair and my co-chair about that. All right, thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, Village Park.
Yeah, so let me hop in there on this. I talked to Elizabeth, and we had the plans there, you know, when I was in the park. I said, geez, out of an abundance of transparency, I would, you know, love to get the plans just in front of as many boards as possible. This design that you see right now was done by Jim Epping, and I'm going to take this before Planning Commission on Thursday for their approval. That's
They're meeting on Wednesday.
Okay. I didn't, are you sure?
Mhm.
Thought there was a last special meeting, but,
Okay.
okay, but I'll work that out with Cindy. Anyway, Planning Commission, to approve the plan. But it does call for the moving of the benches, and I know that was a DDA asset, right? You guys all purchased them, you had them installed where they were, and the plan has them moved. We absolutely still want to repurpose them and reuse them, and so I thought it would, you know, be just an opportunity for everybody to, if they have any concerns, to certainly share that, and, you know, make sure that you guys are okay with us moving the benches into the new design as you see around the park. The illustration in the meeting packet and the one that's on the large board there with the amphitheater, not ultimately going to be the final structure that you see there, because that has arborvitaes that are shown behind it. The plan is to have a storage room, an enclosure behind that structure so that sound and chairs and whatnot can be put in there. And also the climbing rocks, certainly the plan calls for a playscape to be put there, but I have some other ideas that I've thrown out to the committee, more of a tree fallen logs instead of just rocks. And so they're just looking to see what they can source. And then obviously what fits in the budget. So those two assets may not be the same, but certainly just repurposing the benches, the trash cans, and the picnic tables that are already there would be very useful.
Was there any thoughts as to where you want to repurpose those?
They're actually shown in the.
Oh, you were saying they would still.
They're just
be
getting
in the
moved.
park.
They're
Oh,
just
yeah,
gonna move
yeah,
on.
in the
Oh,
park,
okay.
just in a different position, because
Gotcha.
they're bolted down where, you know, where they are right now, and we would obviously be removing all those bricks. They're gonna reuse the brick pavers that are in that X pattern right now, which you see in that center area right in front of the amphitheater. So we're gonna repurpose that and get more of a level seating dance floor surface out in front.
I don't have
And
a
what you
problem
see,
with that.
the tan colored arches is gonna be, I think, a stamped aggregate. And so those benches would be lined in, along those stamped aggregate areas instead. So that's all,
It looks
I don't think
nice.
the board has to take any action, I just wanted to, you know, at least have a discussion and make sure there wasn't any objections.
I looked at it and gave it to a couple of friends. I noticed there was no electric outlets, so if you really want to you need to plan for it now.
It's going to be in the amphitheater, yep.
Well, I've seen
Right.
other communities where they literally put a dozen or 2 dozen Christmas trees there. If you
Oh, okay.
want to do anything there in terms of other electric, it's nothing, it's cheap to do it now. It becomes hideously expensive to do it later.
So that's a very good point.
The village has a long history of planting stuff and not planning out the watering. Those trees that they're calling for are going to have to be watered as well as everything else. I know it's an irrigation system, but we have a long history of screwing up on that, so I would beg that someone pay some attention to it. As for the mulch, you don't want shredded mulch. If you're gonna do it right and you do it professionally, you're gonna do it with rubber today. It's pretty much the standard in the industry. You might want to have somebody check on that. We also noticed that there was no fountain, and or there may not be any desire to have one. And I didn't see anything about trash containers, and for God's sakes, don't lose the dog poop bags, because
No, we
it's
just put them back up.
extremely important. Well,
Yep, absolutely.
Elizabeth,
Yeah.
when they're not here,
Yeah, you're right.
and you're saying, this is what we're going for, then I'm saying, well, where's the trash containers and where's the dog poop stuff? So maybe it's being picky, but that's what I assume it was sent out to do.
Yeah, so there is a whole irrigation plan, so we'll have a sprinkler system. There is plans, but we haven't designated where it's going to go yet for a bottled drink refill station, which is way more popular than a drinking fountain these days, more sanitary. We briefly talked about putting that up where the rock or the time capsule is, to try and get some of those areas where you might not be able to have seating, but we still want to have that feature. So, the electrical plan, I know is being worked on, so, but I'll make sure that they take that into account, that there's electricity available in a more generous arrangement than just one by the Christmas tree. It's a very good point, Bill, so thanks for that.
I want to do a Christmas tree competition
Right.
in the park, and I'm serious about that.
Yeah.
Because I've seen it, and
I
it's,
love that.
it's, as much as
Yep.
people come to look at the lights, something like that would in fact draw, and
I used to love it when they did that Tavern on the Green style and that, the small ornamental, I don't know if it's a crabapple tree, where it was literally just wrapped with thousands of lights and it just glows. I love that
I
look,
think
so.
we're saying the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't know right now, and if you don't plan on the electric outlets being there,
Yes,
you take a nothing item and turn it into $20,000-$30,000 because you tear everything up to do it.
for sure. Yeah,
And, having done a few events now in that space, having that extra electrical would be really helpful for vendors. Because it really limits what we can bring in that space.
sure.
So that is a really good
Without
point,
cords,
Bill.
yep.
And I'm going to nominate you as the chair of the Christmas decorating contest that you just suggested.
We all heard
I'll
that.
second that, right? Yeah.
I'd love to accept it with the proviso that I know right now that we will not be here from early November to
Not
just
this year.
before Christmas, and leaving shortly after Christmas. And
What is the size of the park overall? Like, how many, is it 3/4 of an acre? Is it?
That's a very good question. I do not know the answer to that. Yep.
That's what I was going
I do want to just point out, we do have someone who came tonight specifically regarding the park, so I didn't know if you wanted to open it up to see if she had any questions.
Oh, sure,
Absolutely.
yeah.
I just don't want to see the people. It looks more like Romeo, historical. I'm not the only one. A lot of people have said, when they hear pavilion, that's lovely, but if, I just wanted to know, I certainly don't want to stand in the way of progress, but
I
it
would,
doesn't look like Romeo. It's not
well,
They can't hear you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's okay. Yeah,
Well, I can do it if you want me to.
yeah.
Maybe go to the podium. That's
Right.
the more
It'd
professional.
probably be more.
Yeah.
I said, don't put me.
Less than
Oh,
I didn't know that was going to be part of it.
no? We appreciate your input and feedback, for sure.
Well, I don't like the pavilion, it's pretty, but I don't like it for Romeo. And I know I'm old-fashioned, but Romeo has just been a historical, charming town where that is so modern. And I've heard a lot of people say they don't want to see the gazebo go either. And it wouldn't have to, I hear that it's in bad shape. And I certainly don't want any safety problems, so they could build a new gazebo. I just think it goes more with the town.
Have you seen some other examples that would be more fitting for out there, that would be bigger and more pavilion-esque?
Well, just
but
another
not-
gazebo, I just think that it just looks more charming, like Romeo is historical. Did the Historical Society say anything about this?
No, I don't believe so.
No?
Right, okay.
Because they usually try to keep up the charm of everything,
Right.
and,
Other than, I know that I had reached out when we originally were just talking about revamping the park to Clara and to the Lions Field, to the Tarovich family, who's, I think, sort of built that gazebo. And we looked at the
The Lions
infrastructure.
Club, yeah.
It's, right, it's not movable. We asked if the Parks and Rec, if it could be moved, would they facilitate it here on this campus? And that was, no, they don't really have room for it, and they don't think it would survive the move. And also asked the Lions, would they like it down at Lions Field, since they
Yeah.
sort of organized that as well. And they said, no, thank you, thanks, but no thanks. So
yeah.
that's,
Well, and I understand if it's dangerous, but I just thought, and I've heard people say they like a gazebo, and it just fits in more with our charm.
You know what I see though,
That might
too,
sound silly.
with the pavilion, as to what Elizabeth said earlier, our walkways have the iron gateways and stuff, so maybe ironwork could be included with a different style pavilion, more historical looking.
Yeah.
I would just like to add too, just for clarification purposes, the park itself is not a DDA project. Our board had no involvement with the design or any of the features in the park. It was just being brought up tonight more from an informational
Informational,
standpoint on our end. It is a village project.
actually, it's not, just to
Well, but-
clarify that, right?
okay.
It's actually its own 501c3 entity. The Friends of the Village Park are the
Okay.
ones that received the donations for that. So while certainly it's a village asset,
Sure.
and we have to follow the process to make sure that it's okay with the village boards that the project move forward.
So
it's-
maybe,
yeah.
maybe we could give her some direction as to if there are concerns about
Sure.
historical integrity or design features, where would be the proper boards to reach out to, or when will that come to the approval process? I just don't want it to be misconstrued that it's a project that we're doing and we really can't have any say in this either way. So I want to make sure you're addressing the correct boards too, so that your voice can be heard by the people who get to make those decisions, because unfortunately, we
Yeah, I
don't.
just,
The question here is one
people
of
had come
style,
up to me and said,
Yeah,
"Yeah, that-
more than
you know,
anything else. So pardon me for 1 second. If it's a question of style, what's the real question here is, what's the differential in cost between a more traditional style versus what is obviously a more contemporary look? And I think perhaps that's the question that we want to send to the 501c3 group, and certainly now I have heard other people make the same comment, and I just said, it's not something our board's involved with, but that question probably should be thrown to the 501c3. As there's obviously some concern level in the community about the
Yes.
quote style. What would the cost be to go with a more traditional gazebo? Would that be a fair?
Well, I think so.
Okay. I mean,
So why don't-
it might actually be
I'm not
cheaper
trying
to
to
go
cause
with a
trouble, but
gazebo
people have come up to
than
me.
it is to go with a amphitheater.
Well, it's not honestly so much as the gazebo versus an amphitheater, but you have to look at the uses. Right now, the gazebo that's there, some, mobility issues, right? People can't get up there. When we do have performers, concerts in the park, you can't see who is performing in the gazebo, especially in the background. And so it's a little bit of, what are we going to use the park for? Concerts in the park and public gatherings, taking into consideration those, ADA issues and making sure that it's accessible to everybody. I know Santa had a hard time getting up there before, so we just looked at overall usability of it, but I absolutely appreciate, your input. I'd love to grab your contact information.
I was just
so
going to
that-
say, why don't you
Yeah.
invite her to the next meeting so you're
Yeah.
talking to the right board?
Absolutely,
But we appreciate you coming and,
absolutely.
I encouraged her to come tonight because I knew it was going to be discussed and
Yeah,
it would be a good
absolutely.
time to talk
yeah.
about it.
We'd love the feedback, and that's the idea.
You should bring those, if you have specific ideas like other communities of what they've done, bring them. If you
Yeah,
do,
I mean, if
just
you've
bring
seen
them with
them,
you.
right.
If
Well,
you,
when we were, this is going back 40 years, and we're riding through Clarkston, and we saw the gazebo, and I said, oh, Romeo should have a gazebo. And people liked it, and as I said, people told me about it. I had no way of knowing that this was going to happen. They said, they're going to put a pavilion, and that sounds so cold to me, but
Oh.
I know. Progress.
When was the gazebo installed? Do you know what year it was installed?
It was in the 80s.
Okay.
I've got newspaper.
So we've got 40 years out of it.
yeah, so give Christine your contact information.
Yeah, or do you have it, right, that you do have it, you can forward it to
I'll
me,
give
or?
her, she's got, she has.
Yeah, I can give you my card.
I'll give it to you. Yep, she's got my card. Reach out to me tomorrow. I'll be happy to put you in touch with the right people,
Okay.
for sure.
Perfect.
Thank you.
I'm not trying to cause trouble.
Oh, no,
No.
no, we
We-
appreciate the
yep.
input, yeah.
Well, she had the nerve to come and say what other people are saying privately.
I'm glad she's here, absolutely, because we'd rather hear it now so that we can make changes if that's what, the consensus is, and rather than, have, we're probably never going to make everybody happy with 100% of what we're doing, but we
perhaps
absolutely.
there's a gazebo-esque pavilion, right, that
Right.
looks similar, but we also, we need to be ADA compliant. We need to, if we have a handicapped performer, they can't perform in that gazebo, right? I mean, so are we discriminating against people because it's not accessible to
But
everybody?
that's
I mean,
something that the Village Park Friends need to
Which-
have a further
absolutely,
discussion.
Yeah, so I can have a conversation too, because it is in the DDA.
It would
You
even
know?
be cool to see maybe like next to the Village Park sign, maybe something about the history of that park and to show pictures of that so that it's, even if the gazebo does end up going away, it's not forgotten and it's still there with some information about
Great
who
idea.
built it and just things like that. And it may already be in the works, I don't know.
Yeah, it kind of was talked about that we would be able to utilize the sides of the building that I mentioned behind, because there is going to be a storage facility there planned, so that not everything has to be schlepped in every time we're using the park, but that for the major sponsors and donors, that they would have to be able to, put up some pictures, some, sort of plaques commemorating the donation, and certainly we could take into account the history of what we love about Romeo so much, yeah, so.
Okay. Final budget amendment for 2021, 2022.
Sure, so if you look at the attached budget for approval, you'll see some various notes in there. There's some things moved around, very minor. We changed some of the, under the, let's see, where did we put? We had the alley project one. Now you can see under the revenue, you can see the public donations is added on there. So there's, obviously you could see 321% over what the original budget of donations was. And whatnot. So the total amount, if you look at the last page, you'll see that the amended budget that was approved was $266,700. We are asking for an amended budget of $155,134, which means we are under budget by $117,831. I think that's pretty good. Some of that money, of course, we weren't able to spend the money in time, due to some, my absence and some other staffing issues. So in a few months, we'll probably look for some sort of a budget amendment. Not prepared to do that right now. The one other thing that Christine mentioned is we were looking to pay the $10,000 that was in the budget to go towards some of the crosswalk costs, which the total amount, of course, not to exceed $90,000, which was what you all approved. If we can accrue that back to this one, I think what you're suggesting is that we would change this from what's presented as 155 would be 165, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay.
So how much have we spent on that project so far? How have
None.
we cut, we haven't, so out of
not
that
spent anything.
117, 90 of that,
Nope, just 10,000. We would
Because
just be
the
pulling
rest is going to come out of this budget.
the next fiscal year. So this is,
so we're due to cut a check, is what
Yes.
you're saying?
right,
and
and it
we're
didn't
getting
happen
it
in time,
before-
and because of, people not
I
being in the
see.
office and
Okay.
whatnot, the village, you want to speak to that? You probably could say that
Right.
better than me.
The main bulk of the work is being done now, so we'll be invoiced for the total amount that the village is responsible for with the cost share to the DDA as the project finalizes. The exception to that is the engineering that was already done previously, so that's about $54,000. And so that certainly, as DDA paying a portion of that, we can allocate the $10,000 that was in last fiscal year because it's already been paid as an invoice and accrued back. And then moving forward, in next fiscal year, you will just have the $80,000 that'll be billed when the project's completed.
Got it, thank you.
Yeah, and if you were to go back, if you go to the line item section from your approved budget, second page, and go to the account number 880.00, you'll see Main Street pedestrian crosswalk. Actually, it's a subcategory of .053. You'll see the projected balance from last year was the 10,000. That's what was approved. And then in this current fiscal year, 2022, 2023, it's 80,000 because we expected we would have spent that 10,000 last year. So that you add those two together and you get the 90, right? So what what she's saying is since we can pay that 10,000 and have it be under the
Current
last
budget.
fiscal year, we would just change the amount that I put on my
It's going to go to
final-
165.
It would be 165.
134.61. Okay, I'm going to make a motion to approve the final budget amendment for 21-22 in the amount of 165,000, or 135,134.61.
I have a question.
Do you want a second before a question?
second.
Or how do you normally do that?
I'd like a second, and then we can discuss.
I'll second.
Okay, go ahead, John.
Actually, right below that pedestrian crosswalk, a line, Village Park renovation, can I get a reminder what that is going towards?
This one?
Where are we looking?
Village Park renovation, $10,000 for the upcoming budget year.
Oh, so you're back in the board packet.
No, it's in the,
No?
The,
it's right-
approved budget, right
the
below
line
what-
below what you were just reading?
the main,
Not for the,
No, mine says facade and sign grants underneath.
mine says
Main
Village
Street.
Park renovation.
what's their heading, John, on the sheet you're looking at?
So this would
Yeah, that was the
be
one
approved
from earlier.
budget line item detail,
This was the-
informational purposes.
Okay,
and
that's
it's
not the one.
880.
You're looking at the wrong one.
Okay,
I thought that's the one she was just looking at.
that's what
Oh.
I was just.
No, I was just pointing out that 80, the 80 and the 10, the combination of that, it's, this year's fiscal year is only budgeted 80, to answer Zach's question regarding that
Yeah.
specifically, yeah.
So my question is, the next line down, unless
The-
I'm reading it wrong. what
You're
is
talking
that?
about
No,
the
you're-
Village
you're
Park
right, I see
renovations?
it.
But it's at 0, right? 10,000 was approved for budget year, or for,
Fiscal year 22.
Yeah, which is what we're currently in, but we're going into the 22,
So that was
23
not
budget.
spent, is that what we're saying?
Correct.
Correct, and then we moved it out of there. We budgeted 0 for this year, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the 20, okay, so that is the 0 that's carried over to the
Yes.
right.
Mhm.
Yes.
So,
So John, the last two sheets that are in your board packet, this is the request for approval of the final 21-22 budget amendments. That's what we're talking about right now. So I pulled out the current approved one just to look, to answer his question as far as, you know, where the money is allocated for the crosswalk project.
Okay. Any more discussion? Elizabeth, can you do a roll call?
Sure. Qatar?
Yes.
Kellogg?
Yes.
Malzahn?
Yes?
Brandt?
Yes.
Rose?
yes.
Hayes?
Yes.
Stevens?
Yes.
Parker?
Yep.
Okay. Should we tell John that he missed something in the front end of the meeting?
I'm lost. Sorry for my tardiness.
You're
We
gonna be
were-
really sorry now.
You go back and watch the meeting.
Oh,
No, there was a motion made to, make you secretary for the position. Now, I'm just gonna be honest with you,
And I'll give you this one.
it's just in name only. It doesn't require any extra work. It's just a title.
so is this what happens when you come in late?
Basically,
Yes,
yes.
that's exactly what we
But-
said.
But,
You can go back and watch the beginning of the movie. I mean,
but, so that you don't
That's what I was
feel
doing.
like you got.
That's why I ran over.
Yeah, that's what I kind of wondered, but it does not require any sort of work, and I think Megan can ease any concerns you might have about that. But you do have to accept, so.
So, oh, you're.
we already
putting this on
voted
me
on
right
it,
now.
but
So welcome.
Yeah, I guess at the same
What was
time.
that now?
It was unanimous.
yes.
It was,
Okay, any, Bill?
right here.
No?
Yeah, no,
Greg?
Any other officer
The side of the Little Caesars
They
building
nominated
is
chairs.
available for something if the wall,
Oh,
to the
wonderful.
wall, if there's a.
Like a mural or
CTA,
something?
Yeah, exactly.
Wonderful, okay.
And have we made any progress on dumpster positionings or locations or doing anything out there where we're getting closer to it? Is there any line of effort on that?
Not yet.
Website, is it complete then? Are you happy?
There's a few little things that still have to be worked on, but I mean, like even today, all the information from the informational meeting, that's already up on the website. It's going well.
The building that was refurbished behind the police station, is that?
I suppose for sale, we were talking about before the meeting, is for sale. Came online last week, they're asking $650,000. They say it can be used for an innumerable number of commercial uses, including a restaurant.
Okay. Car wash down there, has anything happened with that? Have we done anything with that? Are the two houses being torn down down there?
They're gone.
Right, but what's next? Is there anything by the parking lot there behind?
Municipal lot, right, Vito Pamploma's gonna, his design hasn't changed. I believe he's
Okay.
asking for an extension on his building permit, so permits have been issued, but with supply chain issues, he's been having some difficulties doing that.
The parking lot was looking a little sad, and so Christine, contacted the contractor, and they came and did some weed whacking and whatnot. Could use a little bit of extra help, but it's looking a lot better. The DDA got involved when the fencing was looking a little bad around one of those buildings, and the building inspector, basically put the hammer down and got that taken care of. It's a safety hazard with those holes in the ground, so that the fencing is now back up and taken care of. So,
I actually have one question. Who takes care of the park?
which part?
Village,
The village. I mean, it's,
it's part of our lawn maintenance program, so,
I was
yeah.
just,
Yeah. Ron White right now is the contractor that, and then occasionally we've had the cemetery crew come down when we needed a little extra, blowing out for an event or something. We've had Mitchell and Casey come down and just, give us a hand,
just
but
be sure you're
Yeah.
looking
it's not a Parks and Rec
because the
thing.
one parking lot was looking, yes, sad is a very generous
It
description.
needs to be weeded instead of weed whacked. When I contacted Ron White, I guess I wasn't specific. I just said it needs some love. I also reached out to Vito because part of his site plan approval was there's supposed to be a maintenance agreement for the care and uptake of, or upkeep of that parking lot, because he didn't have on-site parking all of the required spaces. So he has the option to either now do the payment in lieu of, which we've adopted, or still navigate an agreement with me. And I said, look, we haven't worked out the terms of that, Vito, and the parking lot needs something done. But he plans, when he actually constructs the building, is what he's told me, that he's going to tear out all of that landscaping, again, put in irrigation system and spruce it up, and then he will be responsible for the general maintenance, right? Not snow removal, not icing, not salting. That's still going to be the DPW function. But as far as the aesthetic look of it, that was the trade-off. So we're working together on that.
And the Village Park was part of our, my list of things for our Spruce It Up Sunday volunteer effort that happened and so people took care of the roses and weeded and mulched, and Paramount brought in all the mulch for that. We just took care of that. So not going to make a habit of that, but.
Any updates, Christie?
Just come to the meeting on Monday. We're talking, the Village Council's going to hear the utility rate study presentation from Municipal Analytics, and we're going to revisit the road presentation, because we are considering taking a bond issue out for the November ballot. So
Is that meeting here?
it is here.
Okay.
Yep.
Zach?
I'll just say thank you to Madison and Elizabeth for their hard work on the Vintage Fest this past weekend. I wish Madison was here so we could thank her in person, but it was a good event for downtown.
It was.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Now, you guys on the south end, did you have people in the store?
Yeah,
It was steady. It was steady.
Yeah.
And the little, I think, building off of the little things like the pie eating contest, if we did a little more activity, it's something to grow on. So.
I know John was busy.
That's why I was late.
He's
still busy?
he's still serving vintage drinks.
That was all my run over people, right?
Probably.
Have to come and get some coffee to go home.
You're done, Carol.
Yeah, I'm all set.
I just wanted to mention, and I know this is a work in progress, so I'd shout out to Main Street Romeo Bar. They're really doing cleaning up. So far, so good. I know that they've told me other plans for the back of their area. It looks really nice. Also, I'll mention actually one of Greg's points too regarding dumpsters. We're trying to consolidate there's no solution, but every little one helps. So I'm trying to work with them where maybe we can do a share. So at least get rid of one that's in the back of at least in my area. And then lastly, this guy here, Carl, I'm seeing him out there with the balloons every time there's an event. Just thank you, Carl, and Vera's in general. I know you put extra time, and then cleaning up again the morning before, or the morning after. Thank you for that. It always helps make it look really good, and I don't think it's usually mentioned, so I wanted to.
Great, thank you for that. You're correct. We have overlooked that, so thank you, Carl.
Yes, Carl.
Takes a village, right?
Well,
Yeah,
I
it
just
does.
remember when your dad was doing it.
Yeah, he used to do cleanup.
Yeah.
He's not doing that anymore.
No. I will say what is, there's something under my
It's under here
table.
You're
something.
kicking something, Kelly.
The event that we held at the chamber, the sales were going to are profiting the Northern Macomb Foundation, and it is a significant amount that we are able to put into the scholarship fund, so, yep.
That's awesome.
Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And look at that.
Did you get a chance to speak?
That's okay.